Hi, this is Dr. Renee of Pleasant Leadership Consulting, where we inspire your leadership freedom. Welcome back to Leadership University. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel. Just hit the subscribe button below. All right, so we are in week 3 of our Leader Accountability series. We only have one more session to go. But if you missed session 1 or session 2, that's okay. It is available in our playlist. So it's okay for you to just go back into our playlist and you can watch session 1 or you can watch session 2. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, if you're not following us on social media, well, just come on board. You can find us on Facebook at Pleasant Leadership Consulting. How logical is that? You can follow us on Instagram at Pleasant_leadership, or you can find us on Twitter at the handle of Pleasant Leader 1. All right, so let's talk about our objectives for this 4-week series, if I can. So on week 1, we talked about some astonishing accountability statistics relating to followers and to leaders. And they were a little shocking, and if I didn't scare you off, then you came back for week 2, 3, and 4, and I appreciate that. So week 2, we defined what is accountability. So we talked about that, and we talked about what it looks like in your organization if you don't have it, and we talked about what it does look like if you do have it. So hopefully you do have it. And if not, well, maybe by the end of the series you will have it in place. Today we're going to talk about where does accountability come from. And if you followed me for even just a minute, you already know the answer to it, but I'm still going to talk about it anyway because, well, it just flows with the series. And week 4, which is probably why everybody tuned in, we're going to talk about accepting responsibility for our actions. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. Where does accountability come from? You already know it, so let me go ahead and hear it. Where does accountability come from? It comes from leadership. That's right, guys and gals. It all begins at the top. It begins with the leader in place. All right, I've said it before. It starts with leadership and it ends with leadership. So this is one of the aspects where it's not always the favorite part of being a leader is the accountability. It's that free will that we talked about in section 2, you know, and as you're inspiring and influencing other people, you're dealing with free will. And that's a hard thing to move. So you've got to motivate people to willingly change and change their behavior or get them to accept or take ownership of things. So this is where leadership comes into place. Difference between manager and leadership. Okay? So, got a quote for you here. People with good intentions make promises. Yeah, they do. But people with good character keep them. So there's a difference here. Good intentions, they make the promises, but people with good character are the ones that keep them. So before I was a leadership coach, I was in education for 20 plus years, but before I was in education, I was in law enforcement. So law enforcement and education have a lot of things in common. Both of those were educating people to make better choices, and we're helping them along the way with some problem-solving skills. So when I was in law enforcement, I had a sergeant on my squad who, whenever he would go out with the public, he would frequently tell them this one phrase: the road to, let's just say Hades, that's not what he said, the road to Hades is paved with good intentions. And he would usually tell this to people that we would frequently visit, shall we say, and he would tell the person who's usually pleading not to be arrested or not to be asked to leave the premises or whatever. They would be pleading with the sergeant. So the sergeant would say, the road to Hades is paved with good intentions. And what he would ask of this person who's pleading with him is to stop making promises and instead change their behavior so that we would not have to be called out to the scene. And that stuck with me over the years, and I used it in law enforcement, I used it in education, and I continue to use it in my leadership training because he was onto something. say, but it's about your actions. And we talked about that in week 1 and 2. It takes nothing to say words. Anybody can word vomit. But are your words matching your actions? People with good intentions make promises, but people with good character keep them. So leaders, are you a person with good intentions, or are you a leader who has good character? Because your followers, remember from week 1, your followers are watching and listening. So they're listening to your words, and they're listening to those words, your good intentions, and they're seeing if they match your actions to see if you have good character. I promise you. So let's look at the second quote I have up here on the screen. Whoops. Sorry. That's stinking mouth. If your actions do not prove the truth of your words, then your words are nothing more than lies. Now, this may seem a little harsh to you, but I'm not going to apologize for it, because it is a strong statement that is true in leadership. Let's read it again. If your actions do not prove the truth of your words, then your words are nothing more than lies. There has to be congruency between your words and your actions. Leaders, you are called to a higher level. More is expected of you than of your followers, and this is especially true. Your truth, your words, and your actions must be congruent. They must be congruent. This is where your accountability comes into play. So remember in session 1, I said if your organization is lacking accountability, you must first stop and look at yourself. Because if your actions do not prove the truth of your words, then your words are nothing more than lies according to your followers. This is the reason why. There is some sort of disconnect somewhere, either in their impersonation of their perception of the meaning of your words, or the perception of your action, or somewhere there along the way there's a disconnect in the communication. It has to be fixed. There has to be congruency in the words and the action. There has to be an accountability between the words and the action. So let's go through, and there was an astounding statistic in week 1 that I want to bring back in here. 84% of followers say the way leaders behave is the single most important factor influencing accountability in their organization. So we talked about this. We said that followers, they hear what you're saying, but they're watching what you're doing. So leader does, follower does. So if a leader says something, but their actions say something else, and they're not held accountable, they don't self-account, the follower gets the message that their words do not have to match their actions, and they don't have to be self-accountable. If no one's going to hold them accountable in the organization, no one's going to hold the leader accountable, and the leader's not going to self-account, the followers get the message that nobody in the organization is going to hold them accountable if they don't match the words and their actions, and they don't have to self-account. So go back to week 2, and we talked about the circle of what it looks like in your organization when accountability is lacking. So you have low morale, you have low productivity, you have low trust. That is not the environment you want. That's not what we want. There has to be congruency, and it starts with leadership. So it starts with self-accountability, and it starts with, then it flows into organizational accountability. I told you this segment, this whole leader accountability It was going to be some tough love, but you weren't called to the role of leadership to be soft, to be fluffy. You were called to lead well. Stay tuned for one more session. We're going to wrap this up next week. We're going to close out the series. I do thank you so much for hanging tough and to have a thick skin and to take this like a champion. I encourage you to visit our website at pleasantleadership.com or to text us to learn more about our business or how we can help you. Leaders, I encourage you to go forth and lead well. Your followers need you. Be accountable to yourself, be accountable to your organization, be accountable to your followers. Until next week, one more week. Until next week, have a stellar day, and I'll see you in 1 week.